step aside. And the New York Times just reported that donors will freeze roughly $90 million in pledged donations if Biden stays in the race. We need more details on that one, but it's clearly a blow to the campaign. Lawmakers are still calling for him to drop out. Just this morning, Swing District Colorado Representative Brittany Peterson called for Biden to step aside. She wrote, quote, "Joe Biden saved our country once, and I'm joining the growing number of people in my district and across the country to ask him to do it again. Please pass the torch to one of our many capable Democratic leaders so we have the best chance to defeat Donald Trump." Meanwhile, 3 more House Democrats, including Representatives Jim Himes, Scott Peters and Eric Sorensen, said Biden should step aside just minutes after he concluded the press conference last night. They were all arguing he's not the strongest candidate to defeat Trump come November. And of course, that's the key argument that's been made against Biden. So in total, there are now 21 calls for Biden to drop out from congressional Democrats in all. Meanwhile, CNN's Jake Tapper shared this message that he said came from a longtime Biden advisor directly to him. It's worth reading. The advisor said, quote, "I just think there is an unfortunate inevitability to all this. I'm sad because I have known him," that's Biden, "a long time, and he is a good man. I'm angry at his inner circle, who have not served him well and at times committed malpractice in their service. And I am frustrated at the family for not expanding the circle, so there would be a truth teller or two in their midst. They created a perfect storm of an echo chamber, and it's biting them all in the ass." Similarly, CNN's David Axelrod, the former Obama advisor, tweeted, quote, "If what he said, Biden, at the end of his presser is true, it sounds like Biden's team has not been very candid with him about what the data is showing. The age issue is a huge and potentially insurmountable concern, and his odds of victory are very, very slim." Now, others seem to disagree. Vanity Fair correspondent Brian Stelter tweeted, quote, "Millions of Democratic voters watched Biden's press conference, and now some of them are wondering, why are the chattering classes trying to force this man out of office?"
At least part of Biden's speech calmed MSNBC's Rachel Maddow. Let's watch.
You noted that there were some moments of, startlingly impressive command of the issues. This is just my opinion. He is not only strong on foreign policy, he is just fundamentally right on foreign policy in the way that he talks about it. And again, your mileage may vary. That is how I feel about the way he talks about our relationship with our allies and our relationship with NATO. You can hear his command of the issues, particularly in his asides, like mentioning as an offhand way that it was Turkey really that needed really to be talked into an expansion of NATO that included Finland and Sweden.
Now, others don't know how useful Biden's strength in foreign policy actually is. NBC political reporter tweeted, quote, "One Democratic official in D.C., forbidden from speaking publicly about this, tells me President Biden seems most comfortable talking about foreign policy issues like NATO, which swing voters in battleground states do not care about at all." So don't think that Democrats are reassured. Meanwhile, Biden's campaign chair told staffers Thursday to tune out, quote, "the crazy effing gossip land world," quote, and that there was still a path to victory, according to new reporting by Axios. What is that path to victory? Because the data isn't out there. Yeah. The email that the campaign manager sent out before was just believe in what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And Biden himself, because he thinks he's right, is not making any case other than, trust me, I did good before, I'll keep doing it now, right? Like that's right. What the message seems to be, just trust me.
Right, and so what we know is President Biden is now behind in this race. We also know that because of the weird vagaries of the Electoral College, a Democrat has to win the nationwide vote, perhaps by several points, in order to actually claim the presidency. And if Biden is behind by a significant measurable margin, which we think he is, then the question is, how do you turn that around? And what is interesting, and I think from a Democratic perspective, ominous to me at the moment, is how low the bar is being placed. Like, it's not good enough for him to display basic competence, or it's not good enough for him to avoid catastrophe. There is a deficit where he is lagging. How is that deficit to be overcome? And the suggestion seems to be, well, we can just talk about $35 a month insulin, which, I mean, that's a kind of significant, it's a thing, that's for sure. It can make a difference to people's lives. But do those practical accomplishments, infrastructure, whatever it is, close that gap when you have an 81-year-old man making the argument?
Well, like you said, the idea of clearing a bar, you shouldn't really be having that at this stage of a competition anyway, right. Let alone the argument that he made yesterday at the press conference is he'll reduce his activities. You know, he tried to say that Trump is walking around on a golf cart. All of that, had Biden and his team embraced age as a reality early on, I think would have been less of a problem now, as opposed to the denial, the lack of access to the press corps. Yesterday was the first time he's taken questions from the press directly. So it is, if you look at that press bubble, there's a feeding frenzy right now. I mean, they are seeing red because they feel they have been lied to. And it's hard to parse out what is media frenzy from actual voters who have done the work in districts. You know, they've been working on local issues and know that they have to turn out in November. What I can say now, though, the idea that clearing this basic bar of competence is not enough to get people who feel completely left out and disaffected to get off their couch. I mean, the couch is actually the biggest problem. Right. Is your sofa going to be better than going out to vote in the rain in November?
Sure, because it's not that we're expecting people to go in swathes moving from the Democratic camp to the Republican camp. Nobody is really going to move from Biden to a very strongly pro-Trump position. But enthusiasm, Democratic engagement, those are all obviously big issues. The other thing is, it's for sure true that Biden people make this argument that, it's the elites. The elites are trying to push him out. It's the donors, it's media. I just don't really buy that, frankly, because we have seen in polling for a long time that there has been concern about Biden's age. And when we say age, what we're really talking about is shorthand for mental acuity. And that has not, to my mind, been something that has been fed by elites. In fact, quite the reverse. The danger in Biden's situation, it seems to me, is millions and millions of people, including me, have had the experience of watching perhaps relatives or people whom they care about struggle with the effects of the passage of time, we'll say gently. And so the behaviours that Biden displays are very, very familiar to a lot of people in a very worrying way. And I think that's the core of his problem.
Well, again, Trump put out all of his stuff, right? Like, he had executive time all day on his schedule. Like, he embraced who he was. The actual age is not all that different. I don't think people are arguing Trump is smarter than Biden, better necessarily at the command of policy and personnel and politics. I mean, the world leaders who were at NATO event yesterday, allies, UK, France, Germany, are like, please, 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 give us the reliability of Biden and not Trump. But the fact that that was all out there, and now suddenly this is a Democratic problem about mental acuity, it is part of the bizarro nature of where we're at right now, right? Because it's not, we've seen this happen 4 years ago, and this is a worse version of it now.
Sure. But I also think, the global leaders' point, yes, it is true. I think that global leaders would prefer President Biden over a return of former President Trump. I don't think there's any doubt about that at all. The thing is, that has basically zero effect on American elections, right? I mean, voters in Youngstown couldn't give the slightest crap what Chancellor or a Chancellor of Germany or, the Prime Minister of some other country thinks about it. And so, Biden's election will have to be fought on the concerns in this country. And he has a case of a kind to make. I'm skeptical that it's a strong enough case to overcome the difficulties that everyone sees.
Well, he's the one, if the Democrats want a somewhat clean convention and nominating process and the money to transfer and all of that, he's the one who has to step aside. Until he does, there's no official way for there to be consideration of anybody else.
Right. And that's what everyone is waiting for. We are all waiting to see whether President Biden continues on or whether he decides it is time to go. It's not time for us to go, though. We'll be back with more Rising soon.